The city lights blurred into a watercolor painting through her rain-streaked window. It was late, that quiet hour when the world seems to hold its breath. Her apartment was a small sanctuary, a bubble of peace against the restless hum of the metropolis. She was curled up on the sofa, a half-read book resting on her chest, the soft glow of a lamp painting everything in warm, honeyed tones. It was one of those nights where you feel completely content, wrapped in the simple comfort of being home. Then, the silence was shattered. Her phone, lying face down on the coffee table, began to vibrate, its screen casting an urgent, pulsating blue light across the room. The ringtone, a melody she usually found cheerful, now sounded jarring, almost accusatory in the stillness. She glanced at it. A known number. Her brow furrowed. Who would be calling at this hour? A telemarketer working a late shift, or wrong number from a distant time zone? A wave of annoyance washed over her. Her peace, so carefully cultivated, had been disturbed. She had a strict personal rule: no unknown numbers. Especially not after 10 o'clock. It was a boundary she'd set to protect her quiet evenings. To keep the chaos of the outside world at bay. She let it ring once, twice. The sound seemed to echo in the small apartment, each chime a small, sharp intrusion. She could have reached out. Her hand was just inches away. A simple swipe of her thumb was all it would have taken. But she resisted. Her day had been long and draining. A demanding boss, a looming deadline, the endless sea of faces on the morning commute. This time, her time, was precious. It was hers to guard. So she turned over, pulling a soft blanket up to her chin, and actively ignored it. The ringing continued, persistent, almost desperate. 5 rings, 6. Finally, silence returned, and the call went to voicemail. She sighed, a small puff of relief, and closed her eyes, letting the quiet lull her back toward the edge of sleep. The unknown caller was forgotten, a minor blip in an otherwise peaceful night. Or so she thought. An hour later, another sound pierced the quiet. This one was different. Not a ringtone, but a heavy, authoritative knock on her apartment door. Her heart leaped into her throat. A knock like that, at this time of night, could only mean one of two things, and neither was good. She slid off the sofa, her bare feet cold on the hardwood floor, and crept towards the door. Peeking through the peephole, her blood ran cold. 2 police officers stood in the sterile, fluorescent light of the hallway, their faces grim, their shoulders set. Her hands trembled as she fumbled with the locks. "Can I help you, officers?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. One of them, older, with kind but weary eyes, held up a badge. "Ma'am, are you Sarah Jenkins?" She nodded, her throat tight. "I'm sorry to disturb you so late," he began, his tone gentle but firm. "We're here about your brother, David. There's been an accident." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Accident. Brother. The world tilted on its axis. No, it couldn't be. She had just spoken to David that afternoon. He was fine. He was excited about a new project at work. The officer continued, explaining the details in a calm, practiced voice that did little to soften the blow. A car crash. A slippery road on the old county highway. He had been on his way home from a late meeting. The paramedics had done everything they could. The words blurred together, a meaningless drone against the roaring in her ears. And then, the officer said something that made her entire body go numb. "He tried to call you, ma'am." From the scene. The call log on his phone shows your number was the last one he dialed. It looks like he tried to call you right after it happened. The image hit her with the force of a physical blow. The phone on the coffee table, the insistent, pulsating blue light, the unknown number. It wasn't a telemarketer. It wasn't a wrong number. Was David, her brother, lying injured, perhaps trapped in his car on a dark, lonely road, his last conscious effort being a desperate attempt to reach her. And she had ignored it. She had let it ring, annoyed by the intrusion, while he was fighting for his life, needing to hear her voice one last time. The police officers left, their condolences feeling hollow and distant. The apartment, once her sanctuary, now felt like a cage. The silence was no longer peaceful, it was suffocating, filled with the ghost of a ring she could never unhear. She sank to the floor, the cold with a stark contrast to the fire of guilt and regret burning through her. She was awake. She was right there. All she had to do was answer. The thought became a tortuous mantra, playing on a loop in her mind. He needed help, and she had chosen her own minor comfort over his desperation. Days turned into a gray, featureless blur. Friends and family came and went, offering words of comfort, plates of food she couldn't eat, and hugs that couldn't reach the frozen core of her grief. They all said the same things: "It's not your fault. You couldn't have known. There was nothing you could have done." Logically, she knew they were probably right. What could she have done? Called an ambulance faster, perhaps. But it wasn't about logic. It was about the gaping wound left by that single, unanswered call. It was the knowledge that in her brother's final moments of need, she had not been there. She had silenced him. Sleep offered no escape. Every time she closed her eyes, the scene replayed with vivid, agonizing clarity. The phone rings, the blue light flashes, her own hand motionless on the sofa. And in her dreams, she heard his voice, not as he was, but as she imagined him in that moment, weak, scared, calling her name. "Sarah, pick up, Sarah. Please." She would wake up with a gasp, her pillow wet with tears, the phantom ringtone echoing in her ears. The world kept moving, but she was stuck in that one moment, that one terrible decision. Her rule, the one she had created to protect her peace, had become the architect of her deepest pain. She looked at her phone now with a mixture of fear and loathing. It was no longer a tool of connection, but a monument to her failure, a reminder that sometimes the most significant choices we make aren't the grand, sweeping gestures, but the small, quiet moments of inaction. Choosing not to act, choosing not to answer, is still a choice. And silence, she now knew with devastating certainty, can be the loudest decision of all. It's a decision whose echo can last a lifetime. Life is filled with these small moments, these seemingly insignificant choices that can ripple outward with unforeseen consequences. We can't always know what's on the other side of a call, a door, or a simple question. But we can choose to be open. We can choose to connect. Thank you for listening. If you were moved by this story, follow Moral Compass 01 for more real stories that share real-life lessons. Your follow helps us continue to create content that makes you think. Subscribe for more.